The United States is heading towards something that's a bit worrying, especially for anyone dreaming of a chill retirement. In the next few years, up to 2030, the number of people age 65 or older is going to shoot up by 70%. But here's the part that really makes you think. The number of people working, the ones keeping the whole show running, is only going to inch up by about 4%. It's like inviting a whole football team over for dinner, but only cooking a single pizza. You can tell right away that it's not going to work out well. Why? Because of the cash that's supposed to keep you cozy when you retire. Things like Social Security and the healthcare stuff, Medicare and Medicaid. We're going to need to spend more of our country's money on these things, a lot more. By 2030, Social Security needs more percentage of our big money pot, and by 2040, Medicare and Medicaid will need even more. And what does it mean for your retirement? Well, that's what I'm going to talk about. Be sure to watch this video to the end, as there's this big change that's been happening in the way retirement plans work, and it's something we should all be paying attention to. So the first truth about the U.S. economy is inflation. Just like a river that quietly erodes its banks, inflation has a way of sneaking up on us, affecting everything from our daily cup of joe to the roof over our heads. Since early 2021, inflation has been like a race car, zooming past wage growth and leaving it in the dust. This means the cost of just living life, filling up your car, keeping a roof over your head, putting food on the table, has been climbing faster than what most people are earning. For those dreaming of retirement or already there, this is a big deal. It's like planning a picnic and then realizing the cost of sandwiches and lemonade has doubled overnight. Suddenly, the money you've been putting aside for retirement needs to stretch even further. And for those already retired, it's like your savings are on a diet, shrinking because everyday costs just keep ballooning. Inflation's sneaky rise means two things. Saving for retirement is now a game of catch-up, and for those who've bid adios to the working world, it's about tightening the belt on a budget that's already pretty snug. This constant increase in the cost of living nibbles away at the ability to enjoy the retirement you've worked hard for, turning what should be your golden years into a scramble to keep up. Another important thing about U.S. economy that can impact your retirement is linked to healthcare costs and long-term care. This is going to be a heavyweight contender in the retirement ring. The cost of staying healthy and receiving care when we need it most. You see, about 6 of 10 retirees can't afford more than 2 years of the care they might need down the line. The COVID-19 pandemic threw a spotlight on this issue in a way we hadn't seen before. It wasn't just about getting sick, it was about the stark reality of needing care and the dizzying cost associated with it. Many of us found ourselves thinking about assisted living and long-term care, not just for ourselves, but for our loved ones, and wondering, can we afford this? This is where the conversation about retirement starts feeling a bit more urgent. It's not just about how much you've saved or how wisely you've invested. It's about considering how you're going to manage healthcare costs that seem to only go one way, up. And it's about understanding that these costs aren't just numbers on a bill. They're directly tied to our quality of life as we age. As we navigate these truths about the U.S. economy and retirement, the message is clear. Planning for health care and long-term care is not just a good idea, it's essential. It's about giving yourself peace of mind and ensuring you can enjoy your retirement without the constant worry of health care costs looming over you. All right, another piece of the puzzle is the impact of the baby boomers retiring. A whole generation are stepping into retirement, and it's baby boomers. It's a big deal because there are so many of them, and they control a huge chunk of financial assets. A study from the Economic Policy Institute throws a spotlight on something pretty interesting and a bit concerning. While we all cheer for the boomers heading into their well-deserved rest, there's a twist. Their retirement is kind of like a double-edged sword. On one side, it's great for them, but on the flip side, it's going to put a bit more pressure on the rest of us, especially when it comes to taxes needed to support retirement benefits. In short, while we're all bracing for this impact, there are two villains lurking in the shadows that might make things even trickier. Rising healthcare costs, yeah, we talked about that before, and wage inequality. These two are like the sneaky characters in our story, potentially leading to a drop in living standards that could hit harder than the tax burden from the boomers' retirement. By 2030, the number crunchers estimate that the whole scenario with the baby boomers retiring might mean a slight dip in after-tax wages and family income, with a figure just over 6%. Okay, the next thing that can impact your retirement and you need to take care of is passive income. Now here's the thing about these types of income. They generally move with inflation. When inflation steps up, these incomes usually step up too. Interest rates, for example, tend to rise when the Federal Reserve turns the dial up. This is because the Fed is trying to keep the economy in check. Not too hot, not too cold. But, and it's a big but, while they move with inflation, they don't always keep up. Dividends from stocks and what you make from rental properties can be especially unpredictable. Stocks might pay dividends, but how much and when can depend on how well the company's doing. And rental income? That can be solid, especially if you're able to adjust rents with the market, but again, it's variable. So while you're uncovering the truths about the economy and retirement, this bit about passive income is very important. It's tempting to think of it as a set-it-and-forget-it part of your retirement plan. But due to the current situation of the economy, it requires a bit more attention and flexibility. In short, because of the impact of inflation and the changing landscape of retirement planning, it's clear that passive income is an important piece of the puzzle. But just like any other part of your retirement income, it's not something you can just set up and hope for the best. The last thing is something very important, and it's about shifts in retirement planning. Now, back in the day, many people had what's called defined benefit plans for their retirement. Think of these as the traditional pension plans where your employer promised you a specific amount of money when you retired, based on your salary and how long you worked there. It was a pretty solid deal, but now there's been a big shift to what's known as defined contribution plans, like your 401ks and IRAs. Now, instead of your employer promising you a specific payout, you're the one putting money into this pot, often with some matching from your employer. The amount you end up with when you retire, well, that depends on how well the investments in the plan do. It's a bit like rolling the dice and hoping for the best. For the baby boomers who own over half of the U.S.'s financial assets, research from McKinsey pointed out something they call the retirement consumption gap. This is where retirees start cutting back on spending way more than they probably need to because they're scared stiff about running out of money. It's like seeing a ghost every time you think about dipping into your savings. This fear got a turbo boost with COVID-19. During the pandemic, a whopping 2.4 million more baby boomers than expected said, "That's it, I'm out," and retired early. You can imagine the panic button getting hit hard here because retiring early can mean not saving enough and potentially outliving your stash of cash. Ultimately, the truth is, the U.S. economy isn't going to save you. It's up to you to create a solid financial plan that takes advantage of the current economy as well as one that protects your wealth in the future as well. Investing in assets that grow with inflation is a good bet, and like I mentioned, earlier passive income is key to making sure you've got that income coming in. I suggest you watch this video next to find out the 7 dividend ETFs you need for passive income in 2024.